live here too.
Alrighty, great. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for who are on Facebook and those who are on Zoom. Today we're actually going to be talking about building a financial foundation. Let me introduce myself. I'm Shaniqua Pope. I work with World Financial Group, and what we do is educate families, and we have a cause to educate 1 million families all around the United States and Canada before the year 2020. And the way we do that is by going out and inviting people to workshops or to educate them individually on a one-on-one basis to better help them to be financially prepared. So I'm actually going to go ahead and get started. I know I put on my page that I was going to be doing weekly workshops, and this is not the weekly workshops, just want to put that out there, but there will be weekly workshops. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is building a financial foundation. Financial security is not a dream, but it is an absolute priority. Okay, so you can build a proper financial foundation. And some challenges that we do have as far as building a financial foundation is having to protect our family, making sure that we have health coverage, life coverage, disability coverage. Another thing that is challenging for us is how do we reduce our liabilities and how do we get out of debt sooner? Another is dealing with constant changes in your job, your career, or your business. And lastly, living a long life without adequate income. That's a really big challenge for many of us because, a lot of people, they work past the age of 65. People say, oh, I'm going to retire when I turn 65. Really, are you? Are you financially prepared? So we actually have a solution for that. And that solution is building your foundation like you build a house. You start from the bottom and then you build up to the top. Okay? So the first pillar or level, if I may say, building from the ground up, is protection. The second is debt management. The third is emergency fund. And the last one is your investments. We all know that it's super important to make money, save money, grow our money, and protect the money that we have. So something that I want you guys to know is a concept known as the X curve. Talks about wealth and responsibility. So it's pretty much an X, right? And going up is a law of building wealth. So when we're young, we have the ability to build wealth, right? The younger you start, the quicker or the longer, the more time you have to actually save money. And then we talk about decreasing responsibility. As we all know, we're young, we have a house, we bought a house, we recently got married, we went on a vacation or a honeymoon. Next we, bought a car, then we have to pay for childcare and all of those things, right? Well, according to the concept, the X-curve concept, we want to try and decrease that responsibility as we get older. So, therefore, as you're older, you're more secure. Less debt, less responsibility, and more wealth. Okay? So there's actually you need money, of course. You need time to be able to have it grow. You need to know the plus or minus the rate of return. That's your interest rate, minus your inflation and minus your taxes. That is how you grow wealth. Okay, that's the wealth formula. And you can actually build a successful financial foundation or future based on that formula. Okay, but we have to understand that we must take care of our responsibilities while we're building wealth. So that means don't try and invest before you, take care of your family, the daycare, putting gas in the car or whatever. You need to make sure that you pay attention to the foundation that you have to start from, which is the 4 pillars that I told you about: the protection, debt management, emergency fund, and investments. Okay? So another concept, and something that's so important for us to know and understand, is the power of compounding interest. So there's something called the Rule of 72. This is a rule stapled by Albert Einstein. He came up with this, mathematic formula that pretty much said whatever number you take and divide into 72, that's how long it's going to take for your money to double. Okay? So let's say, for example, we have an account and it's growing interest at 4%. We divide that number into 72. It's going to take 18 years for that money to double. So say when you turn 29, you put $10,000 away. When you're 47, it's going to then be $40,000 if it's still at the 4% interest rate. But let's look at a 12% interest rate being divided into 72. That's going to take 6 years to double. So every 6 years, right? So when you're 29, you invest $10,000. When you're 35, it'll be $20,000. When you're 41, it'll be $40,000. When you're 47, it'll be $80,000, so forth and so forth. Okay? There's a big difference between $10,000 at 4% and then $10,000 at 12%. Okay? Now, we must understand the real rate of return. Now that means, you have your interest rate, you have your money invested, and you have your interest rate, but you have to take into account taxes, being taxed at 25%. You have to take into account a 3.5% inflation, and then you'll see your actual return. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to invest this much, and this is how much I'm guaranteed to get back. Inflation is real, and taxes is even more real. For example, back in 1978, an average income was $17,000. Can you guys imagine living off of $17,000 a year? That was an average income. An average house cost $54,800. Rent, I can't even believe this is coming out of my mouth, but rent was $260 a month. Gas was 63 cents. A dozen of eggs was only 48 cents. And a new car was, a little bit over $3,800. That is absolutely awesome. So you got to ask ask yourself this question. Are you winning or losing in this money game? If you don't pay attention to inflation, if you don't pay attention to taxes, you are likely going to lose. So something you need to understand is know the risk. Know what risk you're taking. What account are you going to put your funds in? And is it going to, increase at a 40% plus 40%, or is it going to decrease at a minus 20%, or is it going to be stable at adding, plus 10% or plus 10%, So let me just give you one scenario. So there's two people, Mr. A and Mr. B. Year one, Mr. A has plus 40%, right? They both invested $100, but Mr. B had a plus 10%. That sounds great, right? So who's winning right now? Currently, it looks like Mr. A is winning. However, on year two, there's a minus 20% for Mr. A, and for Mr. B, it's going to be a plus 10%. So they both are now even at 20%, right? Net. However, the results, according to, the percentage, it looks like it's even. But in accordance with the results, Mr. A had $140 because it was a plus 40, but Mr. B had $110 because it was plus 10. But the next year, Mr. A lost $112. Okay? So now that's 140 minus 28, right? So now that's $112 that Mr. A has. But look at Mr. B. He plus 10% in both years. Mr. B had remaining 121 bucks. So it's important for you to really understand the ups and downs of the market, or wherever you're investing. Make sure you try to avoid the market risk as much as possible. Now, it's important for you to pay yourself first. This is something that a lot of people, to be honest, do at the end. Once all their bills are paid, the daycare is paid for, house is paid for, but it's so important to make sure that we actually pay ourselves. So there's two people, and there's Mr. Start Early, and then there's Mr. Wait Longer. So Mr. Start Early was smart. At the age of 26, he took $36,000 or $3,600, right? And he started investing it for, for 7 years. And then he was like, oh, you know what? Kind of need that money. So he stopped investing. He stopped putting money in yearly, the $3,600. So at the age of 31, he accumulated $34,692. And this is all at a 8% tax deferred account interest rate, right? 8%. Now then there's Mr. Wait Longer. He had a yearly contribution of the same exact amount at the same exact interest rate and the same exact account. However, he waited until he was 32 to start investing and to start putting money to the side for himself. So, like I told you, Mr. Start Early only did it for 7 years, but Mr. Wait Longer did it he invested $3,600 from the age of 32 all the way down to age 48. That's a long time to be investing. Tell me, how is it that Mr. Start Early had a smaller contribution than Mr. Wait Longer, but they're about the same amount? And that's because of, like we talked about, compounding interest. It's so important that we start early in saving our funds into the correct account. Okay? I actually have a question for you guys, and you can put it in the comment section, but I want you guys to answer this question. What is your interest rate at your bank? So your savings account that you have at your federal, your credit union, or your savings account at your bank, what is your interest rate? And if you have an answer to that, I want you to think, okay, now how much money do I actually have sitting in that account? If you have $10,000 sitting in an account at your bank or your credit union, you need to really reconsider why you have it sitting there, because it's likely going to be less than 1%. Okay, and remember we talked about, the rule of 72. If you divide 1 into 72, you're going to get the number 72. So it's going to take 72 years for your $10,000 that's sitting into your account. Actually, I'm sorry, it's going to take greater than 72 years because it's less than 1%. But anyway, just be mindful of, where you have your funds. Understand that there are better options, okay? All right. So according to how Mr. Start Early invested and Mr. Wait Longer invested, you could have the same amount contributing way more. However, do you want to do it that way? If you start early, you can have more later on, okay? And mind you, this was just from the age of 25 to 48, which is not long at all. So understand that procrastination is one of the main causes of failure. Don't procrastinate. Save your money for yourself. Okay? Little changes go a long way. Small changes can make you very big money. So question. If you can make small changes in your spending habits and start saving $10 a day, that's $300 a month, would you do it? Would you actually, make those small changes? Especially if you knew that you could put it in an account where you could, let's say, grow your money from at an 8% interest rate. So let's go for that scenario. You have $300 a month, and you're saving it, and you put it to the side in an 8% interest rate in the account for 30 years, right? The end of the 30 years, you are going to have almost $500,000. That sounds awesome, especially when you hear people having to go back to work at the age of 65, have to go work at Walmart or other places. And as we all know, it's not an easy thing to, go get work when you're older. Okay, so let's try and understand what can we cut down. Okay, let's try cutting down sodas, cigarettes, lattes, Starbucks is, I don't know, they put something in that stuff. Cable TV. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I sure don't have cable. There's nothing wrong with it, I guess, besides the fact that you're spending money that, you don't really watch TV all day. I want to put a staple in here, put a little clip note. Roku TV is pretty good. Fire Stick is pretty good. Netflix is awesome. Yeah, just saying. So also games. My husband, he keeps trying to get me with these, what do you call it? Oh, there's GameStop. They have this game and that game. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do it. Bottled water. You can actually get filters for your sink to actually refill your bottles. You have to think smarter about how you're spending your money on sweets, the stuff that you really don't need. Different, new gadgets. I love my phones, and I hate when they mess up. I feel like, they sometimes get in there and they push something and it just makes the phone go completely berserk and make you get a new phone. But, you don't have to keep getting the newest phone. You don't need the newest iPhone, the newest Android phone or anything like that, the newest tablet, or what do you call that thing that sits on the counter? Google.
Like an Alexa?
Alexa's not important. You got Google. You got it right on your phone. So it's just important to make sure you're disciplined and stay consistent. Okay, so something that is very important that you really need to understand is that in order for you to really take care of your family, you have to understand insurance and insurability. Okay, but a lot of people may not understand, okay, what is insurance and how do I know I have enough or whatever. You need to understand how to properly calculate so that you can protect your needs. Okay, so there's something called the DIME method. The DIME method pretty much helps you to understand all of the things that you have to take into account when you need to know how much insurance you need to make sure your family is provided for if anything ever happens to you. And that is, the DIME stands for debt, income, mortgage, education, and that's the DIME method. Okay, so let's say, for example, there's someone in their debt, combined credit cards and loans and other debts is $50,000, right? Okay, so the income that they bring in, what their family lives off of, that's $3,000 a month, which is $36,000 a year, and you need to have plan to replace that for 10 years. Okay, so multiply that and it'll be $360,000, right? Okay, mortgage. Clear that out with $200,000 mortgage balance. It's important to make sure you also try and provide for your kids' education, which is assuming that there's $15,000 a year for a 4-year college for 2 students. That's going to be $120,000. Now, I'm parting the seas on this one. That is going to change, especially if you have little ones. Remember inflation. Remember inflation. That will kill you. The longer that we wait and the older that we get, things change. Remember, I was talking about the car that was only about $3,800. Remember, as time goes, things get more and more expensive. So understand that later on, when your kids are ready to go to college, it may be more expensive. So take that into account too. So adding all of that up, that's the debt of $50,000, the income of $360,000, the mortgage of $200,000, and the education of $120,000. That's $730,000 of protection that is needed for your family if anything ever happens to you. Okay? But you have to understand, you have to be insurable as well, or it's going to be more expensive. And the younger you are, the healthier you are normally. Okay, if you're a little baby and you're just born, of course, you haven't had the chance to really do anything to cause yourself harm, to get out of an accident. I mean, you was just born. You're in the house 24/7. That right there, the younger you are, that's pretty much proof that you will be insurable. The younger you are, the more insurable you are, but of course it all depends on your health. Okay? You have to prepare in case you die before you think you will, I don't really know when people plan to die, but you just make sure you plan. Whether you die too soon or you live too long, even if you are 100, you have to plan for that. Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to provide for yourself if you live to 100 years old? Okay. So next is also on building your financial future. Make sure that you understand the returns in the past years of what these investments have been working, or what they've been doing. So for example, the S&P 500, let's say it's been at a 8.2% interest rate, steady for 20 years, as opposed to investing in a CD, which is at like a 3.5% interest rate. You have to make sure you understand where is the best place to put your money, and you have to understand the different investments as far as if it's taxable, if it's tax deferred, or if it's a tax-free account. It's very important, because just like inflation, taxes will hurt you too. Okay? So just to quickly recap and go over what what I gave you guys in a nutshell, it's important to reduce your debt. You have to reduce your debt. Okay? The next is pay yourself first. Talking about Mr. Save Early and Mr. Wait Longer. It's important. The next is make more money. How are you going to make more money? Okay? Build up equity into your investments. And also preserve your estate. And preserving your estate is very important as well. Because, I don't know how many people understands what probate is, or understands that, what the necessity of a power of attorney is, or things like that. But it's super, super important to make sure that your house is on firm foundation, So that is the end of this session. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like my video and share it with whomever you think can use it. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment. Please feel free to reach out to me at themoneycause@gmail.com, and also send me a message. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.